everybody. Welcome to the FusionShare podcast. And I am just thrilled to have joining us again, the one, the only, the great Al Meola. Al, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Well, it is great to have you again. You joined us right around this time last year when you were on the Electric Years tour, and you're back again, Land of the Midnight Sun tour. And you've got some familiar faces in the band. I know Gumby Ortiz is with you, he's been with you for many years, and an old friend on the drums, Tommy Breckline, right?
Tommy Breckline, yeah. It's one of the former alumni from a couple of bands I had, and also on some recordings of mine in the '80s. Yeah, he's killing it.
Fantastic.
And,
and who?
I've got Philippe Sace on keyboards. Who's also was it Philippe? I actually brought him over from Paris, and I got him his green card, and I helped to get him his green card. That is, and then he wound up playing in my very first band after leaving Return to Forever.
Yeah, that's
So
fantastic.
it's just good. There's a bunch of alumni in the band.
Yeah, it sure sounds it. And who's playing bass?
On bass, we have a Venezuelan bass player, Elias Tona. He's a great player, and that rounds out the band.
That is great. And so five-piece band getting out there and playing the Land of the Midnight Sun tour, and letting you folks know, you go to aldemeola.com, you can check out the remainder of the tour. I'm just looking here, my little iPhone cheat sheet. You've got, let's see, you're starting out on the 15th in Stuart, Florida, a little swing through Florida, and you've got Clearwater on the 16th. Here in Fort Lauderdale, where we are, at the Parker Theater on the 17th, and then Orlando on the 18th, and then it's off to Georgia and Texas. So you can go check out aldemeola.com and just click on tour, and it'll tell you where and when and how to get your tickets. And it's a great thing, Al. This music, you're literally, last July was 50 years playing playing since you joined Return to Forever in 1974. 50 years.
That's true. Yeah.
Can you believe it?
July 3rd, 1974 was my first gig with RTF at Carnegie Hall. They started me at Carnegie Hall, which was talk about nerve-wracking. And we had to go back and take a picture there this past July, right on that day, because it really was significant. It was, my parents came to the show. They just couldn't believe it. I was 2 or 3 days out of Berkeley. That's how much rehearsal time in between leaving Berkeley and playing at Carnegie Hall when I got the call from Chick.
Yeah.
And it was significant. It was, 50 years just went by. Wow.
Yeah. I think that would qualify as significant. Carnegie Hall with Chick Corea right out of Berkeley. Crazy.
Nobody does that. Nobody does that.
Nobody does that. Nobody does that.
Preferred to have 3 weeks of him warming up at clubs than to have that stress, But, it was
baptism by fire.
Because, exactly.
Yeah, kind of a baptism by fire. I guess there's no regrets that happened, but it just had to be just a surreal experience. Just, all of a sudden and Carnegie Hall to boot. Not only are you playing with Chick Corea and one of the top fusion bands at the time, and which you took to a whole other place, but Carnegie Hall, that had to be just terrifying.
Well, it could have been Carnegie Hall with any other number of acts, but it was the fact that I was playing with my favorite band as well.
Yeah.
So I got the gig with I Return to Forever at that time was my favorite band for more than one reason. It was not just three great jazz improvisers, but also it was a composition band.
Yeah.
I love the compositions, and that's what we're going to revisit some of that early RTF, um, the electric early RTF, which we're going to rehearse in the next few days and play for the first time actually with this band, and then lead right into my first album, which was only Jesus, it was only like a year and a half later. CBS signed me, and Chick was really the the person who inspired the three of us to write music for our own albums, which
Yeah.
I at the time I just couldn't believe it. And I didn't even want to do it. I mean, I just really liked playing his compositions, and I didn't know if I could compose. So, so this was my first attempt at composing. That I had this chart, and it was. I'm actually amazed at how well written I was writing charts from the get go, and so I took this out of a closet, and it's in perfect shape, and it was more challenging to play than I thought. It's actually kicking my butt a little bit. And so we're getting into rehearsal today with that one and a couple of others. One of them, another one being Theme of the Mothership from the first Electric RTF album, which I've never played, but I've always,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
That's
actually
a
did a version of it. No, that's not true. That's not true. But we're going to do more of the RTF version, which is a little bit different. It's more electric.
right.
It's more powerful. So we're going to do that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Because when you joined the band, Where Have I Known You Before had yet to be released. It was Hymn of the Seventh Galaxy with Bill Connors on
Hmm.
guitar. So you kind of had to learn all that stuff. And I guess, it was a crash
Not
course.
all. No, it was all new stuff. So
Oh, okay.
we never did do Senor Mouse from that record. I only re-recorded it because I liked some of the music from that first record. So, we didn't do him at the Seventh Galaxy because on Where Have I Known You Before, it was a different version of the composition called Beyond the Seventh Galaxy,
Right.
which is
Which you
we
play. You
so
play
we
that
play.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we played more of the music from Where Have I Known You Before from my period. So this time I'm taking one from the first album, Theme of the Mothership, with that version. You know
Yeah.
because I think there was an album I had done my own version somewhere earlier on. I forget which album. I think it was Tiramisu, going back to early '90s.
One thing I think that anyone that's followed your career over the years, the decades, um, is that the music evolved and it evolved, but it also went into so many different places. Like you didn't stay, you never did one thing. You did a lot of the acoustic stuff with solo, and then John and Paco, and then you had different bands, and then you mentioned Tiramisu, and was Cielo Etera, and
So they said it was yeah, quite different.
yeah.
It was kind of inspired by an album of John Williams, the classical
Oh yeah,
John
the classical
Williams,
guitarist. Yeah.
and he had an album when I was a young teen, well, mid-teens or whatever. I was inspired by this album. It's called 20th Century Guitar, and it was very contemporary, almost avant-garde composition of really atonal kind of stuff. But it was so cool. I always loved that record. So I said someday I'm going to write music inspired by this record,
Yeah.
inspired by not only that record but guys like Ralph Towner and people like that. But anyway, yeah. So that was a big departure. Record company probably went nuts when I did that. Like why did he do this? And then I was deeply inspired by Astor Piazzolla, the tango master, and I had taken on, a couple of different groups with bandonian and then one with accordion, and that music was quite uh, it evolved into this kind of direction of classical and jazz and but more on the acoustic side, and that was a different era, and that's one I love. I love that. I still play some of that music.
Yeah. It seems that your interests are so varied, that
They are, but I really wanted to go back to the beginning, you know, because I think there's a lot of people that some of which haven't heard the music that may show at the show.
yeah,
And there's also, the early fans that, I've kind of not, they probably came to the show expecting to hear some of those, the early songs, which were like my hits of that kind of music
yeah,
in that era. That you'd love to hear it one more time or whatever, So
sure.
I wanted to test myself and see if I could do it, and also more importantly, enjoy it, So
Yeah.
yeah, so, we,
Well,
so we're
I
doing
know
it.
that I think I could speak for the audience when I when I say we've certainly enjoyed it. I mean, I was at last year's show here in Fort Lauderdale, and it just wonderful to hear that music live. And at the time, for me, the first time, I kind of followed. It was late '70s, early '80s when I discovered Al Di Meola universe, and so I was a little bit behind the glory years, right at the very beginning of it. But I kind of caught it, you know, uh, early enough. And I think that, to go, but never heard it live because, you were on to doing
Mm.
other things. And then you
Yeah.
did the Return to Forever reunion, the first one in '83, and then again in the 2000s. But, uh, hearing
Well,
them,
I was just getting my feet wet in the beginning, I was just
yeah,
getting my feet wet. So sometimes you just have, this thing in your head that you have to grow as a composer and evolve, and hopefully that happened. But then you kind of forget about what you did in the beginning, and you go back to listening to those records. You go, now I get it. Now, like I hadn't listened to the early records in more than 10, 20 years,
yeah,
and maybe even longer in some cases. And I see what it is. I can see more clearly what it is that people found exciting, and I wonder if I can get back to doing that again. It was a challenge in itself because our chops were crazy good back then.
unbelievable. Well, they're still mind blowing. But I gotta say,
Yep.
what do you think in some ways that it was in the air at the time? Everybody was kind of inspiring everybody else. You had
Yeah.
that era where you had Mahavishnu and Weather Report and Return of Forever,
Totally.
obviously, and Larry Coryell's 11th House and Tony Williams and all these guys were everybody's kind of pushing George Duke. Everybody was pushing each other. It was
We
something,
were just There was so much information.
yeah,
There was so much inspiration and information that had to come out. It was a new era, and that's what I'm really proud to have been part of this new era. You call it what you want, fusion, jazz, rock, whatever it may be, contemporary, instrumental, but it was new because prior to, let's say, Miles Davis's Bitches Brew, there wasn't really a solid jazz rock thing happening with anybody. There was little attempts at blending these different elements into the music, but nothing, nothing like what exploded in the mid '70s. And it was one early to mid '70s, and it was just an amazing time. And
yeah,
Mahavishnu was just super exciting. I wouldn't call it so much a composition band, but just the playing, and we had never heard, playing like that before.
no,
It just didn't exist. You have Weather Report, which was conceptually um, a band that was like no other. It was really hard to pinpoint compositional form, because it was these Joe Zawinul's mind was so unique. And in later years when Jocko joined the band, which the band exploded. I mean, and of course,
yeah,
Elegant Gypsy, my second record came out the same week as Heavy Weather, and because we were on the same label, they put us on a national tour together, co build, and So I got to hang with those guys every night. And then, man, the music was so great,
Oh,
and I think, a little bit of, or maybe a lot of what lent itself to making that music so vibrant and happening was the total focus we had at that time in our life was far greater than now. Because when we wake up, we check our cell phones, we check our computers, whatever, and there's just so many places to look. And so you can spend 5, 6, 7 hours in a 24-hour day or whatever, just away from music. And I think back then, when if we recorded something in the studio, we all ran into the control room to hear the playback. We were just totally zoned. We didn't have any of these other distraction devices. You know
yeah,
what I
and
mean?
that's an excellent point. I mean, there are just an unbelievable amount of distractions today,
Yes. So we
that none
wind
of
up
us
going
can
back to these
really.
old, yeah. And we listen to older records and we go, man, these are the records. We don't hear very much new stuff that is mind blowing like that had made its imprint back then. You know what I mean?
What would you say? I mean, when you said something very interesting in that there were attempts early on to like do some kind of fusion, if you will, or combination, or melding of jazz and rock. Like I'm thinking more from a pop stand, like almost like Chicago did, or those kinds of, where it was more pop oriented. But what would you say was the? Would you say improvisation or maybe guitar, or what was the difference maker when, like, let's say, Mahavishnu came and hit with the intermounting flame versus something a little earlier than that, like a Chicago, like a Blood, Sweat, and Tears, or some, what was the would you say was the difference?
Well, I think the difference is the fact we didn't have a vocalist and lyrics, and you can't be displaying virtuosity of any kind to the degree that we did because we were instrumental in those type of bands with vocalists. If you did, you really kind of almost ruin the music. So the whatever virtuosity or hipness by combining jazz with rock or whatever you were doing, in a group like Chicago or something, would have to be kept at a minimum where we could just, the whole song could be just a virtuoso display of great lines and more than that. I think Chick was my biggest inspiration because he was the way that he played. I wanted to shoot for playing like him, which could never happen. But you have a goal. You want to try to play with that type of articulation, that type of rhythm. You know, the strong player. But at the same time, uh, there may be other players that are equally as strong, but they don't compose on that level. So he had his composition chops at the same level as his playing chops, and that's highly unique. So we were a composition band, even though the audience really got off on the technical fireworks.
Right, right. No,
But they
and
got both. They got both.
they got both, yeah, and that was the thing with that band in particular, with Return to Forever versus the other bands of the day.
What
It was
what killed a lot of fusion? What killed a
yeah,
lot of fusion was like mediocre compositions and tons of shredding and stuffing or whatever the guys were doing. That all of a sudden there were offshoots of groups and offshoots of offshoots and just a lot of I could name a whole lot of guys that are known for their playing, but the composition side of it isn't the thing that people were attracted to. So I always kept the composition part of it. I think as the most important aspect, which it was in
yeah,
my world.
yeah. I guess, of course, the great Al Di Meola. He is on tour with his band. It is a five-piece ensemble, and
Yeah.
he's coming. He's got dates here in Florida, And this coming week, as this podcast releases, then on to Georgia and Texas to wrap up the tour. And he's coming to hopefully a theater near you. I know he'll be in Atlanta, and then also in Texas, he'll be in San Antonio, Dallas, Houston. So you'll want to definitely check it out. Austin as well. You want to check it out.
Awesome.
Go on his line, Al DiMeola, on his website, I should say, online. That's
Yeah.
better. aldemiola.com, aldemiola.
Well, Facebook or the official Facebook as well as the
Yes,
itinerary. Yeah.
official Facebook page too. You can get your tickets there. And Al, I saw that you sort of pulled out of storage and blew the dust off an old guitar that you used to use back with Return to Forever in the earliest days.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I got to ask you about that because, tone is such a big part of your overall sound and everything. What was it like to go back to that, and how did it inspire playing, fast forwarding 50 years and getting that tone again and hearing those kinds of things emerge from that guitar?
Well, there was a period, probably at the beginning of, I would say the 80s, where Paul Reed Smith, who also makes an excellent guitar, who came to one of our Return to Forever shows. It could have been the end of the 70s. I don't remember now. And he was just a kid, and he came backstage with this guitar he just made, and I wound up buying one of them, or two of them actually, and I started to acquire them, and I started getting used to them because they were a lot lighter, and as compared to the Les Paul, which is very, very heavy. Um, and Yeah, I just kind of went with it. Aesthetically, they look great, they sound good, and kind of forgot how cool the Les Paul, how aggressive. There's a real growl to the Les Paul that makes it a Les Paul. But this one in particular had these uh, these special super distortion pickups by Larry DiMarzio that I hear the new ones don't compare to the ones from the '70s. So I pulled out the guitar. We did an A/B in my studio on the engineer's request, and he asked me if I ever played the old guitar. I said no, not really. I haven't played it since 1978. So I found the guitar, and I go, what about the old Marshall, the 50-watt Marshall you used to? I said, well, I don't know where the hell it is. I'll go dig for it, but I don't think the tubes are, there's no way it's good. I'm gonna plug it in, it's gonna work. And it did, it worked, and we were looked at one another like, holy God, and we compared it to, another sound, and we just said, this is the sound. This is my old sound. We're back. And it was like, it remained as part of this solo journey. Yeah, this one is on the cover of Elegant Gypsy as well.
Oh
That's the
yeah,
one.
yeah.
That's the
And
one. Yeah.
speaking of albums, you had a recording that came out pretty much coinciding with your debut with Return of Forever in 1974. It came out, I believe, in July of 24, and that's the name of the album, 24.
Hmm.
And I know it's a beautiful record, by the way, and Ava Dancing in the Moonlight, among other. Uh, did I get that title right? Um, uh,
Ava's Dance in the Moonlight.
Dance in
Yeah.
the Moonlight.
Close.
Ava's Dance
Close.
in the Moonlight. Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful piece of music, and so many other compositions on there. Albums, people, the response has been wonderful. I take it.
It's been great for the people who bought it. I think, they recognize the work that went into it, and the intricacies and the harmonies and the compositions. But it's not like a record I made for radio in particular, or it's not like with any kind of expectations other than this. This was a piece of aesthetic art to me, and that's what made the most, for me, the most important aspect was that I loved what I'm doing, and I just was, it felt like a faucet was turned on, and just all of these ideas were coming out. And I had an extra amount of time due to the COVID year extending into the next year, just a lot of time off in my studio, and I put it to good use. I also remixed some music from that I had tapes of from Friday night in San Francisco. We also did a Saturday night,
Yes.
and so I cleaned up those tapes and I did a lot of editing. So I was busy with that, but mostly writing new music that it just didn't stop. It turned into a double album.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, it was supposed to be a solo record, solo nylon acoustic record, more along the lines of, that idea of the 20th century guitar, John Williams thing. But then, more and more time was added to the spectrum, and then I just started having ideas. Okay, it would be really great with this percussion and this bass and this, and then I got carried away on at least half of the record with fuller sound,
Yeah.
and
Um,
some electric too.
yeah. It's again, it's just a beautiful record. It's called 24. If you haven't gotten it, haven't heard it, please check it out. It's just a tremendous album from Al Di Meola, his latest release from last year. And
Yeah,
Al, I think you're, I want to say, somewhere around 18 months removed from about a pretty serious uh, cardiac event, and
yeah,
you're back stronger than ever. You're feeling great. You look amazing.
yeah. I felt great. I felt great before it. I felt great right after it. I just don't know what it was, except I was told it was hereditary. So if you have parents that have had heart issues, man, it's a good idea to find a cardiologist. And
Yeah.
I just
Well,
never did. I never did because I said I'm the last guy that's going to get something like this. Mainly because I eat healthy, I work out, I do all the things that you would expect somebody like that would not get it. And the main reason being I never tried a cigarette in my life, so I don't even have that. So I just
yeah, you
I put
played
it in the
everything
back.
right. It just those kinds of
Yeah,
things.
but one needs to check those things out, at a
Yeah,
certain age anyway, and you might find that you have some blockage,
yeah,
um, and then if you do, there's plenty of things they could do,
yeah,
to
absolutely.
get rid of it. I didn't have any open heart or anything; it was just stents,
Stents. Yeah, good for
and,
you. Well,
and
I'm
but
glad
it
that
was a
we're
very
all glad that you're
it
doing
wasn't
great.
a big it was not a big deal. It was just what was a big publicity deal was the fact that it happened in the middle of a song in Romania, and so it's
Yeah,
not, there was an AP photographer in the audience who took a shot of me right as I went down like this, and that went viral, because that usually doesn't happen on stage. So that became a kind of a unique story in the world.
yeah. No, it was, and I a really good friend of mine. I didn't hear about it. He told me about it. I immediately, like the rest
Yeah.
of the world is going online to see what the heck happened. But um, obviously, we're
There
all
were so many get wishes, thousands and thousands of getting wishes from people all around the world. A lot of famous people that I never met even. So everyone's, it got a lot of attention. A lot of people knew about it. I was really moved. It
yeah.
was,
Well,
yeah. So I'm good to go. I'm down here. I have a great cardiologist, and you know, all my stats are phenomenal. So I said, yeah, but I'm eating pasta every day. Shouldn't I be certain aspects of the cholesterol levels be a little off? He goes, no, they're perfect. I said,
yeah.
well, I'm going to keep eating pasta every day. Even if you told me not to eat pasta every day, I'm gonna do it because I'm
Yeah, well,
Italian.
I'm
There's
with
too
you
many
there,
vowels in
sir.
my name. I can't say.
Yeah, no, I love it. We have a somewhat familial or close
Mm.
by distant cousins or close cousins heritage. You being Italian, me being Greek, so I completely understand the love of pasta and great food in general. So
Yeah,
I
great
get that
food.
completely. Before we
Yeah.
let you go, Al, something new coming up? I know 24 was the last album. Anything you have anything after the tour is over? I know you're going to Europe in late spring, early summer to do some shows. And we'll let folks know about those. But um, an album in the works, or possibly some sort of a maybe a reunion, or what's new for you after this?
Oh, this, I'm not looking forward to locking myself up in a studio for a while because I spent 4 years on
Yeah,
on 24,
right.
and 24 is significant because that was the year it was finished 2024, so they left the 20 out. 24 means 24 is complete. Started in 2020, and you know, if I want to make a record. I have two tracks already recorded and they're really good tracks, really, really good. So I have to find other material of Piazzolla because it's really a part two of the Diabolic Inventions record that I did of Piazzolla's work.
Yeah.
So I have two great tracks that I love that were recorded years ago, maybe 6 years ago, and I could complete that and it probably take a lot less time because I already have part of it done. And then I have a project with Stanley Clark and Lenny White that we're going to play live with a symphony orchestra. I mean, a full symphony, which are going to play Chick's parts on of Romantic Warrior,
Oh, wow.
and that's
Beautiful.
going to
Wow.
be in New York City at the end of February, and it's going to be conducted by Steve Mercurio, who is Andrea Bocelli's conductor. So it's really a night to salute Lenny, and this is one of the things we're doing. So it's going to be you know an amazing event. I think
Wow.
we
That
haven't played
sounds
that music in a
wonderful.
long time. Yeah.
Man. Wow, that is something that will be something to behold for sure.
And then in March, we have a kind of a salute. I can't. Well, I shouldn't get this out because it's a surprise, but you'll find out about it. It's a salute to another bass player.
Gotcha. Well, when you're ready to let folks know officially, if you wouldn't mind giving us a little nudge nudge, we'd appreciate it,
Will
so we
do.
could share it with our viewers, listeners. Al, thank you again so much. Again, folks, just letting you know, again, my cheat sheet here on my phone. Um, Several shows in January in Florida, the 15th in Stuart, Florida at the Lyric Theater, in Clearwater on the 16th, at the Parker in Fort Lauderdale on the 17th, Orlando on the 18th, and then on to Georgia, two shows in Atlanta. aldmeola.com, and also his official Facebook page on Facebook, of course. So you want to get tickets, those are the two places, and there's other places, but those are two key places you can go and get your tickets and buy albums and everything. It's all there.
Yeah,
aldmeola.com and on his Facebook page. Al, again, thank you so much for your time.
my pleasure.
Really appreciate it. Hope to see you on the 17th at the Parker. And that's the
Okay,
plan. And be well, and we'll see you soon.
my pleasure, man. Good to see you. Take care.
Al Di Meola, and this is the Fusion Share podcast. So long, everybody.